Football fans, far and wide, welcome to the Football v Football podcast. This is the NFL Week 17 recap. What used to be the last week of the season is now the penultimate week of the season. And this was a week full of games with playoff implications. There ended up being many amazing games. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into the recap here. Before we get started, I want to remind anyone watching on YouTube, subscribe there. If you're listening on a podcast, subscribe there as well. Would be greatly appreciated. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in to the first game. The Atlanta Falcons beat the Arizona Cardinals 20-19. This actually ended up being the only meaningless game of the day in terms of playoff placement. All the other games had playoff implications. So we're going to get this out of the way. It was a close game. It was funny. They didn't show barely any of this game actually on NFL Red Zone. It was really interesting to see. They just didn't show any of it until the last second of the game, which was a last-second winning kick by Young Wei Koo to win this game for the Atlanta Falcons. Tyler Algier, as mentioned on this podcast before the season started, is emerging as a great running back, and he will be the lead running back for this team. He had a great game today. McBride on the Cardinals side of it, he's a solid tight end for the Cardinals. Him and Zach Ertz will be a great duo next year when Ertz gets healthy, and they should absolutely scheme him into this offense along with Zach Ertz on double tight end sets. You know, as I examine the Arizona Cardinals receiving threats, not only do you have these two, Ertz and McBride, but of course you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Hollywood Brown, you have Rondale Moore, you have Greg Dortch. I might be missing somebody else, but this team actually has tremendous receiving threats. They might be the deepest receiving core in the league. So when they do manage to figure out what they're going to do, is Kyler Murray going to stay the quarterback of this team, or are they going to find somebody else to be the quarterback? They have a wealth of receiving threats on this team, and they will be very dangerous with the right quarterback. They do need to get a running back. I'm not really sold on James Conner. James Conner actually can also be a receiving threat more so than a running back. But if they draft a running back or they get a receiver, this offense is going to be very dangerous. But at the end of the day, this game didn't mean much in a week where we had a lot of meaningful games. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next game here. The Detroit Lions beating the Chicago Bears 41-10. Well, this was a normal game for Justin Fields. He doesn't throw the ball very well. He runs a lot. He had 132 rushing yards, led the team in rushing, and he got injured at some point in the game. But they showed him as he was getting injured. They showed Nathan Peterman throwing the ball, their backup, and I think he thought to himself, I'm not going to put the Bears fans through this and let Nathan Peterman go in there and throw a bunch of interceptions. So he gutted his way through this game. The Lions, not only did they look dangerous on defense, only allowing 10 points in this game, they looked extremely dangerous on offense. Those running backs, Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. Williams got the majority of the yards here. He had 144 yards on 22 carries. But DeAndre Swift, I have to say, you know, he was, if you can fathom, despite Williams' yardage, Swift was the more impressive back in this game, and he's the more impressive back in this backfield in general. His cuts and his speed are exceptional, amongst the best in the league. I mean, he also has like a big size frame. He is truly one of the most exceptional running backs in this league. And there was a play near the end of the game here where every Lions defender was in coverage. There was no pass rush at all. And by that, I mean, you know, sometimes when there is a Hail Mary at the end of a game or, you know, you're just kind of playing prevent, then you'll have like a mush rush, what they call maybe 3 or even 2 defensive linemen just kind of casually rushing the quarterback. No, this wasn't that. This was literally all 11 players on the Lions defense dropping in coverage. I had never seen that before. You know, you see something, it's rare you see something new like that in a football game. Usually they say in baseball games, you see something new at every baseball game. But I had never seen that before. So to see that was really interesting, and the result of it was an interception. So there might be some wisdom to this. Maybe teams will do this in the future. I don't think it's that crazy of an idea, especially if the offensive line remains conventional and you remain having these five blockers in there uh, for your quarterback, which are meaningless because if you have your standard receiving threats, then you're really just kind of doubling up on every receiver. So that'll be really interesting to see if that kind of sets a precedent. I thought that was really cool. The result of this game, the Lions winning this game, it sets up a huge matchup to end the season next week in Week 18, where the Lions will be playing the Packers at Lambeau, and the schedule has not been determined yet for when these teams will play. But essentially, this is how it sets up. If the Seahawks, well, if the Seahawks win next week, then they are in the playoffs if the Lions beat the Packers. But if the Packers beat the Lions, even if the Seahawks win, the Packers are in the playoffs. I know that sounds confusing, but I say this to say that the NFL must put the Lions and Packers game and the Seahawks and Rams game at the same time for the integrity of the game. Because if the Seahawks, if there's, I think there's some projection that the Packers are going to play the Lions in the Sunday night game. However, that takes place and the Seahawks win their game earlier in the day, then the Lions will have nothing to play for. And it'll be a lot less meaningful game. So, NFL, make sure to put these two games at the same time or else this game will not be exciting at all. I wanted to say that, and we're going to touch on this more as we move along in this podcast. But we're going to go ahead and admit. Naif, you there?
I am here, my friend.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
What's up, man?
Nice. Are you, where you at?
In bed.
Oh, okay, nice.
In bed. I'm taking this call in bed. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, get comfortable, man. Well, we were. I was just starting to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Denver Broncos, 27-24, and this was the second straight time that the Broncos almost pulled the upset against the Chiefs. Did you see any of this game?
I did see. I was watching it in the background. The Broncos played the Chiefs pretty well. Now twice, both times this season. Sucks for Russell Wilson, though. I mean, I didn't see much from him, to be honest. It was a little better than his previous performances, but still looked like dog water. Mahomes looked great. McKinnon looked great. He killed me in one of my fantasy leagues. So, yeah, that's what I saw.
Yeah, this is the only game where Russell Wilson plays well against the Chiefs. It's really, really odd, and they were up in this game for many parts of this game in the third and fourth quarter, and in meaningful parts of this game, the Broncos were winning. And when you think about how last week they lost by 40 to the Rams, and then they come back this week and almost beat the Chiefs, it really shows you when there was divisional games, you really throw the record out. I mean, that's really kind of how it is. And Russ ran for a couple of touchdowns here. He had some vintage Russ passes, and he's only done that against the Chiefs this season. So as you mentioned, Mahomes exceptional, playing at an MVP level, and that's what it took for them to win. So we'll move on to the New England Patriots beating the Miami Dolphins 23-21. And my boy, poor Frank the Tank Fleming, can't catch a break with the Dolphins. Do you know who that is?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's this guy from Barstool Sports. He's he's also like a Mets fan, and he basically he has like all these. He's like a really funny guy. But anyway, the Dolphins, they were 8-3, and they lost 5 in a row, and now are barely hanging on in the playoff race. and they've had I think 10 playoff collapses in the last 20 years, 10 December collapses. So, what did you think of this game? The Patriots beating the Dolphins.
And honestly, I feel really bad for the Dolphins. They had so much talent early on. You thought they were going to be like juggernauts. His OY jumps into the car.
Yeah. Oh,
What's
why are
up,
you there?
fellas? I'm here, man. I'm here. What's up?
Nice, nice. Yeah, Naif was just we were talking about the Patriots beating the Dolphins. Naif, what else did you have to say about this
Oh,
game?
OY, are you like at the top of a mountain or something?
Nah, I'm driving back home, so I'm gonna keep myself up mute while I drive. I will
Okay.
find you.
All
Yeah, I was
good.
just saying. I mean, they look like juggernauts early on in the season, and then that whole Tua thing, man. I feel really bad for him. I think they would have definitely made the playoffs had he been able to play in one of these games. Bridgewater looked horrible. Thompson didn't look any better, but that's sad. I mean, you would think Teddy Bridgewater is one of the premier backups in the NFL, and he was supposed to win you these types of games where he could just play in a pinch, but he didn't look good. And Belichick, I think, it came down to coaching, to be honest, and better coaching prevailed, and Pat's probably going to go to the playoffs, man.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme in a lot of games this year. Even though the Patriots don't have a talent laden roster, it just seems like the coaching really prevails for them. And oh, why did you see any of this game, Patriots and Dolphins?
So I watched part of it. And by the way, let me know if you think the speaker would be better, because I can take it off the Bluetooth if the speaker is better. Um, so I kind of watched it in spurts. So I don't really have too much. I think I can add on the game itself. But what I do think is like interesting about the Dolphins is like, so their season, I think from what I remember, was they won three and then they lost three, and then they won five and then they lost five. So their season has been like very streaky, and I don't really know what to make of them moving forward, right? Like Knife said, I feel really bad for Tua, and it's like you gotta really seriously start to think like what's his long term future look like, right? Like this is not some it's not like a small deal. And I was thinking like, oh, he should sit out for the rest of the year or whatever, maybe even the playoffs. But like, is that really going to make a difference with something like concussions? Like, I don't know. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't really know what to make of the Dolphins right now, man. I felt like they were kind of overachieving, but that offense is very explosive. Like the vertical passing game is very explosive. So if they can find a way to sneak in, I think they can maybe uh, give a team a game in that first round. But I don't really see them going too far, especially without the quarterback. And again, the Patriots are like a weird team too. I don't know about their quarterback situation anymore, honestly. It seems like they'd be willing to move on from Mac Jones, which is kind of crazy to think about. He's only in his second year or whatever. But never count out Belichick, that guy. Other than having his defensive coordinator be his offensive coordinator, he usually always has a plan. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But I think that is actually like I think top to bottom might be a better division in the NFC East, to be honest with you. It's more top to bottom. I feel like the teams are generally better, but
More
I
competitive.
don't know. It's kind of weird.
I'm gonna echo what you guys mentioned. This Dolphins team, their quarterbacks are just too brittle. Unfortunately, it's just kind of the way it is. Tua now has scary brain issues. I think this is maybe his third or fourth concussion this year, and there was a report that he has some memory loss. That he was in a film session with Mike McDaniel's, his coach, and he started forgetting very big picture parts of the game from a few days prior. So that's very scary. There's a lot of reports, even from like Mike Florio, a lot of these guys that are saying that Tua may not play in the NFL after this year. And then Bridgewater, of course, he often gets injured. He got injured again today. He's really talent wise, he's a backup, but health wise, he cannot be trusted. And then, of course, they're replaced by this guy Skylar Thompson, who, again, as the third string quarterback, somehow plays another game this year. This isn't the first game he's played. So the quarterbacks are not reliable, and Thompson didn't play well. And overall in this game, not a single offensive player stood out. In fact, no skill player on either team had more than 62 yards. And the leading yards guy in this game was Raheem Mostert, who had 62 receiving yards, which is very bizarre. So that's the kind of game this was. But this was decided by the Patriots defense, who had 2 picks, including a pick 6. And that's really what this game came down to. It was just the Patriots and their defense. When the Patriots defense plays at home, they have success. And that's really what decided this game. It's going to be interesting. Both of these teams are now alive for the last playoff seed in the AFC going into next week. So this is going to be one to watch. Moving on to the New York Giants beating the Indianapolis Colts 38-10 in a trouncing by the Giants. This team is so confusing to me. They win all these games without doing anything exceptionally well, and now they've secured a playoff spot. What do you guys have to say about your fellow NFC East brethren? Omar, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to give a shout out to myself here from back in like September, October, what it was when I said that Dabo would be the leading candidate for Coach of the Year, and I think that's what's going on here. Like he's gotten these guys to punch above their weight, and I think they're not very talented, or at least they have a lot of talent deficiencies. But here they are; they're on the cusp of winning 10 games. Hopefully, they win 10 games, and they get into the playoffs with that. And I think he's really like come in and he's changing the culture there. He has a shot at being the best coach in the division, to be honest with you, with how he's coaching this year. I'm a little surprised that it was that bad, but then again, the Colts are pretty terrible, especially on offense. So I think this is a classic case of a team that's being coached to play and overcome their talent deficiencies. Some kudos to Brian Dable for doing that. I think it's definitely something to build on for them. I don't think it's going very far, but I think it's something. It's like a stepping stone for them. So that's kind of my big takeaway from this.
Naif, what do you have to say about your favorite team, the Giants?
I think they're going somewhere, man. To be honest, I got to give a shout out to Daniel Jones. Thought he was absolute dog water coming into the season. I thought they stuck around with him for way too long, and I was wrong. He's really starting to come into his own, and you can tell that the team is really they ride for him. I think OI just sent an article in the group where Saquon was just talking about how much he loved Daniel Jones and how he's like the first one in the office. I think the culture is changing there in New York, and it's going to be really scary going forward if they can rebuild that team, especially with a couple of receivers maybe. They got a really nice offense, though. Their line is playing well. They have a young tight end that's pretty good. I think they're just a receiver away with Saquon and Daniel Jones. And that game, it was just another game where a professional team had to play Jeff Saturday on a Sunday, and Colts suck.
That joke never gets old. And
No.
could that one receiver away be Sterling Shepard or Kadarius Toney or Kenny Golladay? Because they had all 3 of those guys.
I think it's Odell Beckham.
Or Odell Beckham. They just like give away all their top receivers. I think Darius Slayton actually isn't terrible. And I don't know why they didn't get him more. It doesn't matter. They blew him out yesterday. But, to speak on this Daniel Jones point, he led them in rushing yesterday. He had 11 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Who needs Saquon Barkley when you can get that kind of running production from your quarterback? But the Colts have clearly given up here, and it's going to be interesting to see what the Colts owner does with Jeff Saturday here after defending that hire so much going in the next season. I suppose we'll see. I know that you guys are definitely rooting for the Giants as they play the Eagles next week. To see that they've secured this number 6 spot is pretty surprising to me, to be honest with you. But the prospect of having an all NFC East playoffs is now gone. So we'll move on to the next game here, where we have another NFC East team, the New Orleans Saints beating the Philadelphia Eagles 20-10. Gardner Minshew finally showed why he's a backup in this game. I had a lot of faith in him before, but he is a backup. Naif, what did you see here?
Two things. First, I don't think I don't think it was Gardner Minshew's fault at all. I think the Saints had a great game plan to start the game. I think the Eagles had 3 plays in the first quarter, so they really did a good job playing keep away. And number 2 is something we've talked about all year. Dennis Allen's an idiot, and when he decides to give Taysom Hill the ball, the Saints win football games. So that's what we saw yesterday. He gave him the ball, they won some games. Every time they give him the ball, they win. Every time he doesn't, they lose. And they gave him the ball yesterday. And that's what happened.
Simple as that. Oh, why? What did you see from your rival Eagles? Oh, why? Are you there?
Funny, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay. Yeah. What did you think of your Eagles, your rival Eagles yesterday?
Yeah. So I'm saying I would echo some of what Nias was saying about Minshew. It just seemed like the game plan wasn't very Minshew friendly. Like, it just seemed like they weren't setting him up to succeed as much this week. But it's very funny because for 2 weeks all I heard was how Minshew was the best backup in the league. He's one of the 32 best quarterbacks, and now Eagles fans on my Twitter feed. So I just want to, hashtag keep that same energy that they did with Cooper Rush. We were missing Dak. That's all I want to say. But the Eagles are still a really good team. Like, they're top to bottom, they're still a really good team. I think the Saints, it's funny. Like, the Saints are, they're one of those teams that can play a spoiler, and I think they were, like, yesterday. The defense can step up and they can make plays when you need it, especially with Lattimore coming back. It's kind of funny. This was the first game back. He gets the pick six to win the game. So, I think the Saints are a classic spoiler team, and I don't think they're like officially eliminated yet. I'd have to check that, but they're one of those teams that can kind of punch you in the mouth a little bit. I think that's what happened to Philly. I think they got punched in the mouth, and now we have a week 18 where everything's on the line.
So when we talked about Gardner Minshew when he had just started, we saw that his career touchdown to interceptions was, I think, 41 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. And that kind of belies his real issues and doesn't explain why he's a quarterback. The reason why he's a backup. The reason why he's a backup is because when the game matters and he has a chance to score touchdowns that matter, he becomes sloppy, and that's essentially what happened in this game. They only put up 1 touchdown, where A.J. Brown did most of the work. I think there was a 78-yard touchdown, but A.J. Brown ran maybe for like 50 of those yards or 60 of those yards. So other than that, he gets yards here and there, but he's just very subpar in the clutch. That's why the Jaguars got rid of him. That's why he's been a backup, and that's kind of what we're seeing now. On the Saints side of the ball, this was very evenly spread out. Kamara had some good yards. Olave had some good yards. Juwan Johnson, their tight end, had some good yards. And they got it done, in a big spot. In this game, they were fighting for their division. That was still in the cards for them. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough because of this next game. The Tampa Bay Bucks beat the Carolina Panthers 30-24. And the Bucks win the NFC South with this and eliminate all the other teams in the NFC South. This was a chaotic game back and forth, which seemed like it had 50 lead changes, but the Bucks prevailed. Oh, why? What did you see here? Okay, I guess I can't hear, but Naif, what did you see in this game? I think there's some sound issues. Naif, go ahead.
Yeah, man, I just saw the GOAT, Tom Brady. Tom Emo Brady. Stepped out of his emo shell. Maybe he found a new girlfriend. I mean, looked like the Tom Brady of old, to be honest. He kept hooking up with Mike Evans, who looked amazing, man. And that's what I saw, man. I'm kind of, honestly, I'm a little scared now heading into the playoffs. It looks like Dallas is going to play in Tampa. And it looks like Brady's rolling. And he's got an unofficial bye week next week. That's not a good thing, you know. I don't know, rolling Brady plus more time to game plan. I don't know. I don't want to face him, to be honest. I would have rather played the Panthers or the Saints or anybody else, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we'll get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just go Tom Brady. That's what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns. You know, this is the ultimate feast or famine receiver. He has become that over the past year. And Brady threw some amazing balls. You know, one of them was like a picture perfect placement for. And Mike Evans actually said this after the game. This is the best he's ever seen Tom Brady play. They've been playing together, I think, for 2 or 3 years now, and they essentially just maximized the replacement players for J.C. Horn in this sense. I mean, they let Mike Evans go one-on-one for way too many plays. I don't know what the Panthers were thinking in this game. I don't know if they thought that Mike Evans was washed because he hasn't showed much this season, but he tore them up. He had 60 fantasy points, by the way, for anyone wondering what that translated into fantasy. It was exceptional. On the Panthers side, they had a legit chance to win this and win this division, guys. I mean, Darnold was throwing beautiful balls to DJ Moore, getting a lot of other players involved. Shi Smith, they were running the ball well, and you know, looking to the future, I think Darnold probably has the upper hand to stay the quarterback of this team, simply for that reason that I've mentioned before, which is he finds a way to get the ball into the hands of his best players. You know, it's not just just kind of taking what's there or whatever, or trying to force feed it to somebody else. No, you game plan and you find your best player, and that's what he did with DJ Moore. That's why he's had a lot of success. And this could have easily been their division. They were winning in the fourth quarter of this game. But yeah, the Panthers now out of playoff contention, and it'll be interesting to see if their interim coach Steve Wilkes retains this job. I think he brought back to life what was a dead team. So we'll see what they do moving forward here. But we'll move on now to the.
Yeah, Omar, he deserves the job, I think, in my opinion. He did a phenomenal job. We thought the season was over. Who the hell would have thought they would have had a chance to win the division by week 17?
I agree. I think he is deserving as well. Yeah. We'll move on to my favorite game of the day: the Cleveland Browns beating the Washington Commanders 24-10. I know you sent that tweet with LeBron praising Watson. I thought the same thing though. You know, Watson, he's starting to shake off the rust, and he's looking pretty damn good. I have to say, he threw 3 touchdowns. He synced up with Amari Cooper for 2 of them. He got Njoku involved. He got Jones involved. Donovan Peoples-Jones involved. And I think he's starting to look good, and I think they're going to be a good team next season. They have some good defensive pieces as well. Do we have you back with the sound?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. So real quick, you mentioned Mike Evans and what his day translated to in fantasy. Mm-hmm. I know because I was playing against him in my third place matchup. So
crazy.
I was projected. I had like a 75% chance of winning before that game. It was something like that. So thank you very much, Mr. Brady, for ruining my life again.
Yeah.
As for this game, yeah, I think Cleveland definitely has the weapons, and again, focusing strictly on the field. Watson obviously is he has the talent. I think he was gonna have to shake off the rust anyway, and having a guy like Amari helps. Amari is one of the most quarterback friendly receivers in the league. He's always open. You know, if he's healthy and he's on the field, there's a high chance that you're going to find him open. So I'm not surprised by that. The Commanders on the other side, like, what a show, man! Like, just what a show. It's like it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I think like Carson Wentz within like the first 5 minutes of the game, had his third pass. I think he already threw a pick. Um, I don't know what they do with him. Honestly, do you cut him? Do you trade him? Like, what do you do? And what does he do? Right? Like, has he played himself out of the league? You know, that's what people are starting to say. I still think like people will still give him a shot just because of his arm talent and things like that. But just the fact that we're even at this point, he's not that old, guys. He's only like 28, 29, 30. Like, the fact that we're even talking about this at this point is surprised. Like, it's crazy. I never would have thought this like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
If it were me, I would have just played Taylor Heineke at this point and just completely restart and go in a new direction with that whole organization and try to figure things out. But hey, it's Washington, so who knows what they're gonna do.
Yeah, the Piggies, the Porky McTuttle or whatever their new mascot is. That's your new favorite mascot, right, Naif? The new Commanders mascot.
Yeah, we love the swine as long as they keep losing. Just to piggyback on what Ohio State, have we seen a quarterback fall from grace this quick? The way we've watched it with Wentz. I mean, he was easily an MVP candidate that year that the Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl, and then he lost his job to Foles, and then he got his job back, and then lost it to Jalen Hurts. And then he goes to Indianapolis, and I think he was doing all right for the Colts last year until I think it was like the final week of the season where he choked. And then this year was just horrible. Heineke should have been the starting quarterback yesterday. I guess we'll never know if the Redskins or the Commanders had a chance or not with Heineke, but they sure as shit did not have a chance with Carson Wentz. That was ugly, man.
Very ugly.
That was awful.
Very
awful.
Ugly. Yeah.
I thought maybe they'd bring in Heineke sometime in the fourth quarter, at least down to 2 scores, and they didn't do it. I think that was Rivera just being stubborn. It sucks for Heineke too, man. The guy really balled out when Wentz was on the sidelines. And I think he's the reason why the Commanders even had a shot. I think Wentz is best suited to be a backup somewhere if he's willing to do that. And maybe, it could be like a reclamation project where he comes off the bench for an injured quarterback and does well. But as a starter, I don't see him as a starter anywhere in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Watson looked good. The connection with Amari finally. Still, I don't think all that was worth it. But hey, they got 7 wins now.
Yeah, and you have to concede that if Watson had started to play earlier, I think this is absolutely a playoff team. I mean, Nick Chubb looked really good as well yesterday. And meanwhile, like you guys mentioned, Washington and Wentz just kind of laid down in this game in what was essentially a playoff game for them. I agree that moving on from Heineke was a bad move, a huge mistake for Rivera, actually. And if you look back as to why he benched Heineke in the first place, I think it was under a false pretense because that game against the Giants, where he allegedly threw that turnover that he thought lost him the game, that wasn't on I mean, Washington should have won that game, essentially. I mean, we talked about this in another podcast. Terry McLaurin was lined up. He looked at the official twice to make sure that he was lined up correctly, and he said he heard the official say he was lined up, so that was bogus. And then on the next play, the pass in the end zone was defensive pass interference, and then they didn't call it. And that's the reason why he ended up, kind of benching Heineke. So I think he made a bad move. He made a bad decision there. It was a little hasty, but it works to the advantage of the Seahawks here. And Washington essentially, Heineke's not the answer for them either. I mean, they badly need to secure a franchise quarterback, whether that's in the draft or free agency, and they need a bit of an overhaul. I'm not. Listen, I think I know what's going on with Dan Snyder, and I know that Bezos and a lot of these people are trying to get him trying to get him out so they can buy the team. But everything about this Dan Snyder run team is terrible, including this new mascot, which is actually, I know it sounds funny, but it is going to isolate a lot of people, including like a lot of Muslims that like the Washington team, and there are a lot of them. To be honest with you, it's just kind of weird. A lot of these decisions to make is weird, and I think this team needs an overhaul. So bye bye Commanders, and it leaves the window open for Seattle. So thank you. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Houston Texans 31-3. There's not much to say in this game. The Jacksonville Jaguars kind of secured this win early with an Etienne long touchdown run, and that was essentially the game here. Did you guys see anything else in this game, Naif?
Yeah, man. I've been big on Trevor Lawrence for a while, and he's finally starting to come into his own. They're going to be scary in a couple of years. I think if they can add another receiver alongside Christian Kirk, they're going to be a really good team. Etienne looked great. He had a great run. I think they win next week, take the division, and make the playoffs. This is a huge leap for Lawrence, especially after last year with that whole Urban Meyer fiasco. I think they're headed in the right direction. Yeah, I think the Jaguars are going to be really good in a couple of years or next year. Who knows what they might do in the playoffs.
Or maybe this year. OY.
Yeah, maybe this year.
What did you think, OY?
Yeah, I know. I'm going to echo that. I think I was kind of starting to wonder a little bit about Trevor Lawrence. Not ready to make a decision because it was too early. But it was just kind of I need to see a little bit more. I need to see a little bit more of what we had thought, and he's started to show it, and he's been showing it for the second half of this season. And they do have the weapons there too. I was skeptical about giving Christian Kirk all that money when they did. Now it doesn't really matter because the wide receiver market is crazy, and they're getting Calvin Ridley next year. And so they have a lot of. I think they have a lot of options there, and Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning coach. Whether despite where you would rank him, the fact is he has a ring, and I think he's been great for Trevor Lawrence. I think they just need to shore up that defense a little bit, and I think that they can definitely be contenders, especially in that division. Like next year, I think they should be the clear favorites in that division, and I think for them now, they seem like one of those teams that are poised to make a run at the end of the year, even if they don't really do anything. And then next year it carries over. And I think, they can maybe be like a heavy, one of those heavyweights in the AFC next year. I can see that. By the way, I have to run for like 10 minutes, but if you guys are still on, I'll hop right back on.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. And you're right. QB guru Doug Peterson here. And neither team essentially had much to play for in this game since it was meaningless, even though the Jags played all their starters. I mean, this was always a collision course for the Jags and the Titans playing Week 18 for the AFC South, essentially. And the Texans actually won this game by losing because this further secured the number one pick for them next year. And they already set the AFC South championship game essentially for next Saturday night. So I think the Jags have all the momentum here, even though the Titans were a very clear winner of this division and a lock for the playoffs for many, many weeks, for the past 8 weeks. But now with Tannehill out and them having to rely on Malik Willis, who I think is actually the worst quarterback in the league, it's going to be really interesting to see teams going in the wrong directions. Are the Titans going to salvage their season here, or are the Jags going to surpass them and enter the playoffs with momentum? We're going to see. It's going to be really it's going to be an exciting game. Speaking of exciting, the San Francisco 49ers beat the Las Vegas Raiders 37-34 in a tremendous game, back and forth game, similar to the Panthers-Bucks game, where the underdog just couldn't close it out at the end. That's really what it came down to. Derek Carr did not play in this game. Is there anything you have to say about that?
Derek Carr didn't play in that game?
He was benched for Jared Stidham.
And Raiders put up 34 points?
That is correct, sir.
They had a quarterback throw for well over 300, 3 touchdowns.
Oh boy.
Wow. Raiders looked decent yesterday, huh?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
But they didn't get the dub. What happened? Why didn't they get the dub?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They didn't get the dub because they played a better team, and they played out of their minds. The Niners defense just came through there towards them. There was like a fluke interception too, where Stidham had this pass that was like batted at the line of scrimmage, went backwards, and one of the Niners defenders got it. And then, they should have lost in regulation, to be honest. But Robbie Gould shanked the field goal. They played a great game, though, man. Stidham looked really freaking good. He looked like that Stidham that we saw in the preseason with the Pats that one year. I think it was his rookie year or something. And maybe there's something this McDaniel-Stidham connection. He was his OC back in New England. So I think McDaniel saw something that maybe we didn't see. All we know is he's way better than Derek Carr. Derek Carr sucks. And the Raiders looked really good without him yesterday. So whether it's Stidham or somebody else, we know it's not Derek Carr going forward. I think we might see Derek Carr go to Washington next year.
Oh boy.
But yeah, they love these retard quarterbacks. Sorry, can we still say that? I don't know.
I don't know what about him is that, but I know you don't like him.
Oh yeah, he's horrible.
Yeah.
Niners look scary. Brock Purdy looks like the real deal. That defense looks elite. I think they're gonna have a chance to get to the Super Bowl for sure. Maybe they end up with the number 1 seed too, depending on what happens next week.
Oh, you think so?
It's possible.
Well,
it's possible.
Okay, I'll say this about the Raiders. I agree, of course. Stidham, amazing game. There's precedence with him, with McDaniels. He's coming from the Patriots. But really, to me, this was a Devontae Adams game. He was exceptional. He had an amazing catch in the fourth quarter to set up overtime. He broke the Raiders' franchise record for most receiving yards in a season, breaking Tim Brown's record, which is extremely impressive given the Raiders are a historically great team and a great franchise here. Adams is the best receiver in the league. I mean, every week I'm more convinced of that. For the Niners, this was a McCaffrey-Ayuk game to me. Purdy, he did enough not to lose this, obviously. I mean, there is definitely a chance he could have lost this game. This is actually the first game I saw him look a little bit shaky. I mean, he threw a number of balls that could have gotten intercepted. The Raiders were missing a lot of their defensive players in this game, a lot of their defensive starters. He is steady enough to just win the game. I don't think Purdy, to be honest with you, is an exceptional quarterback. I think that if they were to be tested later in the playoffs, I don't know that they're going to pass these tests because the 49ers, despite the fact that historically they've had a good defense this year, today they didn't play well. I mean, no matter how you slice it, you're going to say this is a great Stidham game, great Devontae game. I mean, they gave up 34 points. I think they gave up almost 500 yards of offense to the Raiders or something like that. So this definitely introduces a little bit of doubt into that 49ers defense. And moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see what the QB situation in Las Vegas is. Did Stidham do it? You think Stidham did enough to become the Raiders quarterback next year, or do you think that they should draft or find a free agent, or maybe? Well, I'm not going to even say the last one.
Depending on who falls to them in the draft, there are only 2 quarterbacks I see that are worthy next year. So, and I doubt any of them fall to the Raiders.
Right.
So so maybe stick with Stidham again. Get a better pick or free agent. As long as it's not Derek Carr, you're gonna have a chance. That's the way I view it with the Raiders.
Yeah, we definitely know that.
And the Niners defense wasn't that great yesterday. However, they did have some timely turnovers, I think.
That's true.
Like I said, the Niners should have won in regulation, but they had that other turnover. I think it was in overtime, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders could have won in regulation too if they went for 2 after that touchdown. So
that doesn't lose, right?
Yeah, exactly. already out of playoff contention. So, but another team that might have Derek Carr as their quarterback, the Seattle Seahawks beat the New York Jets. Actually, both of these teams maybe might have Carr as their quarterback. I don't know what's going to go on with Geno Smith, to be honest with you. There's been a lot of talk about it, but anyway, this was a strange defensive focused game. Lots of field goals. Um, I thought neither team played exceptionally well in this game, but the Seahawks were a little better on offense. Um, Gino really connected well with the tight ends, but DK was locked down by Sauce Gardner. Tyler Lockett left this game early. Marquise Goodwin is out on IR, and Treadwell is the only one that the only other receiver on this team that made catches. Speak about Gino and his revenge story. Actually, this is very important to bring up. Gino 3-0 against his former teams this year, and those are the three best games they played. What do you think?
His former teams. He played for the Jets, the Giants,
and the Chargers. They're 3-0 against those teams.
Oh, you played for the Chargers?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Dude, I told you, man. As long as you guys have a running game, Gino's going to ball out. And that's what happened yesterday. You guys got the running game going again. I think Kenneth Walker had like 130 yards.
Mm-hmm.
DK was shut down, but I wouldn't be mad at that. I think Sauce Gardner is already a top 8 corner in the NFL. I know that might seem blasphemous. He's a rookie, but the dude is legit. He's really good.
Yep.
I think the Hawks look great. The Jets did not. Mike White didn't look good at all. He did. I mean, he gives them a lot more than Zach Wilson offensively. But if the Jets defense is going to be giving up that many rushing yards, they're not going to win any games. And the Seahawks, that's their key to victory. I think just running the ball. I hope you guys win next week, man. I don't want the Packers in the playoffs.
Me too. Well, that speaks to maybe that you think that the Packers are more formidable than the Seahawks, which, you might not be wrong. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but, I mean, the Hawks
That's
defense.
Not what I mean at all. That's not what I mean at all.
No, but listen, a great Aaron, but also, there is that thing about you guys and the Packers and not being able to get over the hump with them, and same thing with the Seahawks. But Seahawks defense looked very respectable in this game. They only allowed 6 points to the Jets. Didn't allow any points in the second quarter to them. They came up with 2 picks, one by Quandre Diggs, one by Michael Jackson. Mike White, maybe this was him shaking off rust from that injury, and he actually probably shouldn't have played. I think that they consulted like many doctors in order for them to finally find one that would say that Mike White could play, which I thought was kind of interesting. I was confused as to why the Jets didn't run the ball more, because the Hawks are one of the worst run defenses in the league. Actually, I think they're like 31 or 32. So that was kind of a miscalculation for them. I'm very surprised Robert Saleh didn't see that. Robert Saleh used to work for Pete Carroll, so for him to not see that, I really don't get it. But you're right. Ken Walker was the star of this game, 133 yards. Jets are now eliminated from the playoffs. Seahawks are alive for one final playoff spot, but they're going to need the Packers to lose next week. And I'm going to say what I said earlier in this podcast before you jumped on, but those 2 games must be played simultaneously. I mean, there's no 2 ways about that. Packers and Lions. If the Packers win, they're in. But if the Lions win, even if the Seahawks if the Seahawks win their game earlier in the day, because a lot of people are saying Packers and Lions are going to play Sunday Night Football. If the Seahawks win that game, the Lions have nothing to play for. So that Sunday night game is going to suck for Sunday Night Football. So I'm going to say it again.
If the Seahawks win,
if the Lions win. Basically, the way I think that the NFL is going to do it is that they're going to have the Seahawks and Rams play at like 4:25, and then they're going to put that Lions-Packers game at Sunday Night Football, because that's the one that has the most playoff implications for it, because they already put the Jaguars-Titans game on Saturday night. So, if the Seahawks beat the Rams, then there's no way for the Lions to get into the playoffs. So that Sunday night game would.
But if the Seahawks win and the Packers win, the Packers take that last spot.
Yeah. it's so weird because it's all based on strength of schedule. So if you look at the schedule now, the Seahawks are the 7th seed. But by virtue of them beating the Lions next week, they would have the better strength of schedule. It's very bizarre, but like I said, the NFL needs to put them at the same time to save the integrity of this game. So um, we'll move on now to the Green Bay Packers beating the Minnesota Vikings 41-17. Very relevant for what we were just talking about. So this was an absolute drubbing by the Packers in Lambeau. Uh, like I mentioned in the chat, the league had a chance to bury Rodgers and the Packers throughout this year, and they didn't take it. And now they absolutely look like a Super Bowl team. What do you think about this?
Yeah, the Vikings, they don't look good, man. Where's Elby? He's in hiding, huh?
He's in absolute hiding. He's not even reading. I think he's probably muted the chat.
I don't blame him, man. They're horrible. They're frauds. Kirk Cousins, dude. What time was this game?
Yep, 4:25. That's why.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not good right before the playoffs, man. This is not a good sign. I think OY shared something. 12-4 teams, point differential. I think that minus 17 or something. That's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
How are you at minus 17 and 12-4? Justin Jefferson and Jair Alexander, man, there was a lot of talk going into the game. Jair Alexander was pretty brave talking all that crap, but he backed it up. He shut him down. And I felt like he didn't even play until I read the box score. He had like one catch or something. I don't believe in the Vikings, man. I think, they had a soft schedule early on, and they benefited from that. And now we're going in the last week of the season. The Packers have a freaking chance, and I'm so pissed off because the Cowboys just did their job that week. We wouldn't be talking about the Seahawks would probably be in too.
Absolutely.
So sorry about that, man.
No, man, it's scary, man. Packers were doing Packer things. Rodgers was making mediocre receivers look like superstars. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones were great running the ball. The defense getting pick sixes and big stops, and even special teams. They had a kick return for a touchdown. I mean, this was a big brother reminding a little brother who they are. The Vikings might have won the division this year. The Packers historically have been the big brother in this division. They showed that yesterday, especially at Lambeau. They're playing next week in Lambeau too. It's a very scary prospect. Cousins to Jefferson has been one of the most unstoppable combinations in the league this year, and it was, like you mentioned, completely shut down. This game was 41-3 in the fourth quarter, and credit to, like you mentioned, Jair Alexander, who was very, very determined even before this game to shut down Jefferson. Along with help from everybody on this defense. Packers defense swarmed the Vikings anytime they touched the ball here. Any skill player, not only Jefferson, but even like Dalvin Cook. Every time he got the ball, there was 3 or 4 players around him. Hawkinson, whenever the ball was thrown his way, there were 2 guys to come and break up passes. And Jefferson almost was kicked out of this game, multiple times. I think he slammed his helmet twice. He almost elbowed a ref in the back of the head. He was just completely frustrated all game. This was a clinic, and the Packers officially looked dangerous, and I hate it as well because I know what this team can be when they're playing well. And next week they play the Lions at Lambeau, and I have no faith that the Lions are going to win that game. I think absolutely the Packers are going to win this game. They're set up to win. This is the Packers in December in Lambeau. The Lions, for some reason, play in a dome, so they're not even used to playing outdoors. It's a very stupid, setup, to be honest. But
I don't even think it's that, Omar. I think he's gonna, Rodgers is gonna get all the calls. It's in Lambeau. If you look up the history of how refs ref games there, it's always in favor of the home team. Always. And I think that's what it's going to come down to because the Lions are on the roll too.
I know.
Goff is looking great. I really hope the Lions win this game, man.
That's the only hope. Is that this Lions offense?
Dan Campbell, man. Can you hate Dan Campbell? Is it possible?
Definitely
love
not.
This guy.
Absolutely.
Whoa! Is that Razor Ramon?
He's the bad guy.
Guys, I was listening to the Chronic, so I gotta get the shades and everything. You know, I gotta kind of throwing back to the '90s.
Thug life, nice. I don't know where there's sun. You are. Are you? Are you in the DC area? Because I'm looking outside and it's completely gloomy, but I see sun in your car.
No, I'm coming up. I'm driving through the south. I'm in North Carolina right now.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Fried chicken. Yeah.
Nice.
Are you going to console Sam Darnold?
If you want me to, I can do that. No. I'm not going to consult him. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go find that defensive coordinator for losing me my fantasy football game.
Yeah, seriously.
I think Tom Brady might still be there, man. Flip him roofie or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But anyway, we'll move on to the last game here. The battle for LA, the Los Angeles Chargers beating the Los Angeles Rams, 31-10. There was a lot of social media stuff about this. The Chargers flexing on social media. I think you guys probably sent it in the chat. But then the Rams always reply with rent is due. It's the month. Pay your rent because the Chargers are tenants of the Rams. But anyway, there's a lot of funny things about this game because whenever one of these LA teams plays in that stadium, the opposing team is always the team that has the most fans. And so when you have both of these teams together, it's like I didn't see many people in the crowd, and it was like a battle for who could have less fans in this game. But I mean, the difference was really just, of course, the Chargers had better skill players. Mike Williams, amazing one-handed catch on the sideline. Austin Eckler, amazing runs. I think at one point in this game he had 5 rushes for 100 yards. Naif, what did you see in this game?
Yeah, I was reading a stat somewhere that said there were more Cowboy fans in that stadium than Chargers and Ram fans.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I was trying to look in the crowd, like what jerseys prevail, and it definitely wasn't either of those teams.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, who cares about this game, man? The Rams, one more game, man, we can just stop talking about them. They suck, man. They're probably the worst post-Super Bowl team we've ever seen. I don't know where they're headed to. I don't think they have a lot of draft picks moving forward, so that's the price you pay, right?
Yeah.
Chargers look good, man. Eckler looked good. Herbert looked good. I like Herbert, man. They're building some momentum right before the playoffs. That's good for them.
Sorry, guys. I was placing my order.
Stupid game, though.
It's all good. Can you give
Play
me
it out.
a quarter pounder or a McChicken or a 6-piece?
You really at McDonald's?
I don't know where he's at, but whatever it is, I was trying to cover the gamut. Whopper.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, it's a horrible game, man. Everybody knew the Chargers were going to win. I didn't really care about this game. It was on in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, on the Rams side here, Cam Akers was showing kind of how dumb McVay was throughout the year not to play him. He had a really, really good game. He had 19 carries for 123 yards. He was breaking tackles. He was showing speed. And McVay might retire. I mean, to be honest with you, he was talking about retiring after last year. And after this, they have no prospects for the future. McVay is going to be shown to be exposed. To be honest with you, with a roster this talent poor, and don't get it twisted. You're going to look at this roster and say, "Oh, Cooper Kupp is out for the season. Allen Robinson out. Aaron Donald out." They were playing bad even with those guys. So this is not like a thing like, "Oh, they're missing all their players." No, they were playing bad even when the players were in. So. Why? Any final thoughts here, or are you knee deep into McDonald's fries at this point? I think he's probably ordering. Anyway, all right.
I'm here, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, man. Any final thoughts on the battle of the LA teams?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what you're saying about big picture stuff. Like there were kind of like these there were whispers about Sean McVay's future, right? Like all these guys are kind of tied together. with Aaron Donald and Ramsey and their contracts and their playing futures. So I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out. It's kind of going to be in like a salary cap hell type situation. I don't know if they're actually up against the cap, but what I mean by that is more so in terms of draft capital. They're almost like in a draft capital hell type situation. They have nothing to build on at this point. The only thing that they really have moving forward, I think, is that Jalen Ramsey isn't too old. He's kind of like in the middle of his career probably. I think you can probably have Stafford for maybe a couple more seasons, maybe 3 or 4 at most, of good play maybe. And then I think you have Cooper Kupp, but they don't have a lot of depth. The talent is not dispersed throughout the team. I just don't see them being competitive for a while. Honestly, I don't. On the flip side, I think the Chargers, good for us as fans. We finally get Justin Herbert in the playoffs.
True.
I've kind of been wanting to see this for a while now. It's funny. I feel like he kind of has to overcome coaching here, but the more we have like these great quarterbacks in the playoffs, the better it is for the product. I would just keep an eye out to see if the Chargers can kind of stay out of their own way a little bit. They kind of have a tendency to kind of do stupid things. It's almost like they're cursed a little bit. As a Cowboy fan, kind of know what that feels like. That's something I'll probably try to keep an eye out for. I think moving forward, but it's good to see him finally in the playoffs here and see what he can do.
It's a good point about him finally making the playoffs, and this team usually starts to suffer injuries at the end of the season, but now Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, these guys are all coming back. Bosa coming back, like all these guys coming back with this team late in the year. So it's less likely that they're going to have a lot of these injuries that they have towards the end of the season. So it is going to be really cool to have them in the playoffs and see what they do. I think they're a very, very talented offensive team especially, and they have great weapons on defense too. So we're kind of running out of time here. Does anyone have any last notes? The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens 16-13. Anyone have any final notes about this game? All I really know is that this keeps the Steelers alive for one more week to maybe make the playoffs, and this probably eliminates the Ravens from being able to win their division. Any final thoughts about this game before we wrap up?
Yeah, I do real quick. I just want. Oh, go ahead, Nat. Go ahead.
Go ahead, OY. He's muted right now. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I gotta defend my comment here, man. And I hate doing this. I hate the Steelers, but this is a Hall of Fame coach, and that fan base can be so toxic. It seems like. I mean, again, as a Cowboys fan, we have a very toxic fan base too. But guys, he's won you a ring. He's been to another one. He's never had a losing season, and look what he's been working with. And our friend in the chat sent that text where Steelers fans are apparently comparing his last 5 years to Marvin Lewis's run with the Bengals. Guys, Marvin Lewis never won in the playoffs.
Of course, completely different.
Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and he hasn't had a quarterback in 5 years now. This guy is a great coach, and I think if he gets into the playoffs, he should. It only proves the point even further. And I think at that point, I think Dable is the coach of the year, but I think Tomlin deserves some serious, consideration and should definitely get some votes there.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, NFG?
Yeah, honestly, I was just gonna say I was gonna echo a lot of what OY said. I just want them to make the playoffs so we can rub it in Sherry Hart's face. Because Tomlin is a great coach. I mean, everything that OY said is exactly how I feel about him. He's won the Super Bowl. He's been to another. And here they are again with a chance to make the playoffs in the last game of the season. And they had nobody, man. They had Trubisky and a rookie. And, they had some injuries. And, look, they did really well, given the fact that they were dealing with all that. And they might just make the playoffs. I don't know who they play next week, though, and I don't know their situation. Is it a win and end situation or?
No, I think they're probably least likely of the 3 teams between the Patriots and the Dolphins. They're the third. So they need, I think, both Patriots and Dolphins to lose.
Dolphins still have a chance.
They do. 8-7. Or
So
eight.
what? The
Sorry,
Pats
eight,
play
eight,
the
8 and 8.
Pats play the Jets, right?
Pats play.
No.
I don't
Dolphins
know.
play the Jets. I think.
Somebody plays the Bills. Yeah, they play divisional games.
Oh,
The Steelers play the Browns, I think.
Steelers play Browns. And then let's see. Yeah, I can't see it now, but yeah, they. I think
you're right. Pats Bills. I think it's Pats Bills and Jets Dolphins.
it is. Yes, Pats Bills and then Jets Dolphins. Yeah, so definitely the Dolphins have the easiest of those games, I would say.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now. So they need Buffalo to beat the Patriots, and they need the Jets to beat the Dolphins.
Yeah.
That's that I don't know, but I think the Bills need to win too to hold on to their number 1 seed.
It's not improbable. It's like probably unlikely, but it could happen.
The fact that they're alive, I mean, they were 2-6, and they basically have a rookie quarterback who's just been average. So I agree with you. Patriots have definitely the Steelers have definitely overperformed. The fact that they have a chance at all, that they're alive in Week 18, very impressive. On the other hand, like I mentioned to you guys, Tyler Huntley, he looked good last year, but Lamar Jackson has definitely rubbed off on this guy. He is playing like Lamar Jackson. This team is pathetic. Even though they have Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen on defense, they have a lot of defensive weapons, but they're not doing much. And of course, the offense
is not the problem. Their defense is not
but
the problem. That offense is god awful. Man.
Yeah, but I give away 16 points to the Steelers. I don't know who's really on the Steelers. Like, I don't know.
16 points. That's not a game you lose.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I think that of course the Ravens' offense is worse than their defense for sure. But that defense is, I don't know. They always seem to like give up leads too. So I don't think the Ravens are going to do anything in the playoffs. As I said, even if they bring back Lamar, but we'll see. We'll see if they sign him long term. I don't think they should, as you guys know. So that'll do it for the Week 17 recap. We enter Week 18 with a lot on the line in terms of playoffs. Really looking forward to this last week. Go Lions, go Lions, go Lions, down with the Packers. And thank you guys so much for jumping on here. This has been the Football v Football podcast. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe there. If whatever podcast platform you're listening on, subscribe and rate. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and support this podcast on Ko-fi. NFG Late Night coming from Saudi or Bahrain? Bahrain, coming from Bahrain. Omar Yusuf coming from sunny North Carolina. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you all next time. Have a fantastic day, football fans.